Hey, welcome back to an Abley FME Fireside. Today we're going to be talking through different features that FME and Safe Software have rolled out to improve performance over the years. I feel like this is apt that I'm giving the intro, seeing I've been around the most years.
Got the most experience.
Yeah, the most experience. So I don't experience, wisdom, banging around, just kind of learning over the years. But it was funny, I was on a walk earlier today as we brought up this topic, and the very first one that came to mind was the introduction of test filter.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That would have been well before I started using it.
It's a bit ways to go. It actually was before I started using FME, but only by maybe a year.
Yep.
And the reason I remember this is because when I was learning FME, I was given workspaces that someone else had built, and there were multiple where it was tester after tester after tester after tester.
Yeah. So you're testing on a failed port to get the next.
Exactly.
Yep.
And so one of the things that I was doing, just learning, was, hey, can you make this more efficient and cleaner, what have you?
And
here's how you can learn.
Something new with the test filter is you can now test a feature against every output port, so you can duplicate a feature coming out of it. So if it matches multiple filters, whereas previously it was hierarchical and you had to move them around.
Yeah, exactly. Which I haven't actually played with that yet. It's pretty sweet.
Good.
I've had some use with it for like data with over time and like filtering out 0 to 5 years, 0 to 10 years, 0 to 20 years.
Cool.
Yeah, just having like a whole series of data stream coming out of each port.
Perfect, huh? Nice.
And just going back to when we sort of thought of this topic, I think it was quite funny that Chris and we probably started using FME around a similar time, probably 2016, 2017.
2016.
And we both basically at the same time said that our favourite change, our best change that we've seen so far in terms of performance is
Feature caching.
feature caching.
Yeah.
Because I remember...
And partial runs that come with it.
Yeah.
Because I remember in 2016 having to use the recorder and the player transformer for those big workbenches to separate it out so you wouldn't have to rerun an entire piece of logic just to...
oh man, I'm having flashbacks. I'm having flashbacks to pre-knowing to use like recorders and whatnot, and you just read an entire data set and like without using any kind of query or anything, and you're just sitting there for like 2 minutes while it's just reading in this ginormous... I didn't know any better. You're just like...
Oh, and actually, now think about it, a massive improvement was introduction to the feature reader.
It was on my list too. It was on my list.
Yeah, I just realised I can't live without it now.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't remember it not being there, but it might have appeared. When did it appear off the top of your head?
17?
Okay, so it was probably
15, 16, 17?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah.
But yeah,
and it came in with the writer at the same time, feature writer. And so being able to write something and then read in your next day. Yeah. Because in the previous to that, you were chaining together your workspaces.
Yeah.
And in fact, another feature that I was thinking about as far as efficiencies are concerned with similar to workspace runners was automations on FME server, because previous to that you had to run FME job submitter.
Yep.
I think it was.
The notifications kind of services to chain things together. And
and there were actually a lot of ways. There were notification services. There was something that I haven't done that much with automations. Yeah. But something I often do is parent-child workbench relationships. So you've got one parent workbench that will call off subsequent ones.
And that's what I was meaning.
Yeah.
You always call them controllers. Same concept. Yep. And so you never had to chain together FME server jobs or anything like that?
I've almost resisted doing it. So, and just once we had automations in 2019, that's
makes sense.
Yeah, because we've all got our little wee go-tos of how we do it. And at this point, my go-to is still that parent-child relationship, simply because it's what I know. But Chris, I know from seeing the work you've done on some of our clients, your go-to is automations. And as those automations build up in that complexity, you can do way more advanced things than I can do.
Well, automations are great for kind of whole workspaces that work together as a flow. For the style that you're talking about, where it's almost like parallelization on server, you know, firing off a whole bunch of extra jobs. And I think the server job submitter is still the way to go there.
Yeah. And that's something really good and I mean, it's FME and the wider things, and it's something that you both have probably always heard me say. You can achieve the same thing, but in so many different ways, and that's one of the real powerful things about the platform. Not to mention all the speed improvements and performance enhancements that have come over time. And a big one that they were touching on basically, we're not supposed to talk about anymore, is bulk mode. Because bulk mode now is by default,
standard.
It's the standard approach. But when that came into play, it was a big change. And Chris, I know you had a great example of bulk mode coming in and how it improves some massive workflows.
Oh yeah, there was one a few years back at council. It's just a quarterly process of updating addresses. You get a nationwide GeoPath data set, which is flat file plus spatial, and it's just simply they have to be merged in the rental database. But previously using a feature merger, doing this is a few years back, and then the feature joiner came in, which supported bulk mode, and 10 times faster.
Yeah, just by a simple change to a simple join.
Simple join.
Yeah, and non-spatial joins have historically always been fast, but you were able to make it, or it was made even faster by introducing bulk mode.
Yeah,
which is pretty cool.
What else did you have on your list? I've got my list. I just haven't broken it out yet. I got so excited about bringing up the tester and the test filter that.
I mean, in terms of like transformer improvements, they do talk about things like, you know, the Clipper, I remember was one which has had an overhaul recently, and it's difficult to, I guess, you're never building a single workspace that's relying on a single transformer that you can often kind of see those performance improvements necessarily. But for me, it tends to also be like new transformers that get added in where you used to have to do a whole bunch of things, and now suddenly, here's the schema scanner.
Yeah.
And it's like...
You nailed on one of the ones I was going to say. I was going to say dynamic schemas.
Yep.
Because I don't know if you guys were around, but previously they never had dynamic schemas.
Oh, the schema output port on the SQL Creator. Like,
Yep.
Yeah, that was very new, wasn't it? That was in 23.
That was
2022.
22.
Yeah.
Huge change.
Yep. And so then, all right.
Oh, Gavin's got a list.
Yep, here we go. Old school, paper list. Here we go. So the dynamic schemas, feature redirectors, workspace comparison, which gets used some, not a lot, but what it really advances is FME in the enterprise.
Yes, and CI/CD workflow. It's multiple people working on one project.
It's huge because you can pull your workspaces down, make comparisons between versions, push up new versions, check them against each other, and validate that whatever you are updating is exactly what you're updating, and you didn't accidentally disable something down the track and it wouldn't run if you're pushing it up to a production FME server. So that's a big one. This is an old school one. Junctions and tunnels. Back in the day, those weren't a thing.
I do remember tunnels not being a thing.
Yep.
Oh, man.
And so those are just visual things.
Well, tunnels were always there.
But you had to just hide the line and put two junctions on it.
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
You couldn't just right-click a link and go
create tunnel.
Create a tunnel.
Yep. So those are some fun ones.
So I know they updated junctions a while ago, and it went from the little ones
to
the big ones. That really
huge.
irked me.
It irked you. I liked it much better.
I like
Maybe
the little junctions.
For my eyes, I need that big one. I can't see those little tiny holes on there. Your comment about new transformers. So the HTML extractor replaced like any kind of HTML. I can't remember the workspace or the transformer that it replaced. But when do you even know what it is? Oh, I mean,
is that similar to the HTML table reader, or
no, not
actually,
really.
no. So I have
because
used one. So it's kind of like the XML.
Similar, yes. So you're actually typing in the whatever the class or the div, whatever you're trying to get to, not div, but your ID, your class, you can highlight different links within HTML and it'll pull it out as a list. It'll pull out the actual text within there.
Yeah, I've used it once for getting data from a website.
Right.
I've used it for... I've only used it a handful of times, but it's been when a website hasn't had an API.
Yep.
And you've had to actually go to the
the
physical
actual
URL and
Yep.
then you can pull it out logically there.
Yeah. So it was one of those ones that,
Again, replaced a whole bunch of
yes.
individual steps, because you could do all that with string searches and regex and
Yes, that's what I was
lists,
trying to put together.
exploders.
That's exactly
But
what it
now
was.
you just do it with an
prior to.
HTML extractor.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. And that brings you back to the whole workbench should only have 7 transformers.
Yeah.
I know likes get thrown around, but
It's been a while since I've heard that one. So the parameters dialog box that was introduced last year. So
with the ability to
move them around
Yeah.
and just you
that
can pull
continued
everything up.
improvement.
Yeah, instead of all your parameters being on the side, and it was more difficult to kind of figure out if it was text or if it was a file or whatnot. It's just more user friendly,
Yeah.
more or less.
Yeah, and lots of those little user-friendly improvements as well that don't necessarily make the authoring of a workbench or the process of a workbench fast, but it makes the management.
Yeah.
So like our deployment parameters, I'm yet to really use them in anger. I've had to play around and sort of got the concept of it, but man, that's just going to streamline so much the deployment of things through
Yeah,
environments.
it's a common thing for deployment environments to change passwords, change URL endpoints, change database connections,
Yep.
and just to have that as a standard setup is that's what you need.
Mm-hmm. Oh. Here we go.
The
Yeah,
list
you
is
guys
big.
interrupt if you guys have.
Are the new ones FME22 is as daytime rounder, which
Yeah.
is something which it is like new transformers daytime rounder.
Yeah.
Previously I've done like trimming a date and then rounding it my own way, which is just like not great.
Daytime
Yeah,
rounder.
same. Or like formatting it and then trying to figure out plus or minus
You
days.
can just round to the nearest day.
Yeah. Instead of having to add a day or add certain ones. Yeah.
That's because what I'd used to do would be, say if I just wanted the day, I'd basically put it through a converter or something, or if I wanted to remove the seconds, sometimes I'd just trim off the last trailing characters and replace it with a 00, and that's cool.
Nice.
Excellent.
Staying in 23, I just introduced you to this one, but you can bookmark workspaces that you run all the time now. Oh man. It's because there's certain ones that I just run when I get in the office that are my, hey, checking in type things, whether it's checking against timesheets or what have you. There's certain ones that
You've
I
got
just
something that you need to run in the morning
and just see how
Yeah.
things are going. And so it's just nice to have that flagged right there.
Definitely.
FME, attribute manager, when that was introduced,
True. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was also a big change.
it changed
Big
quite a bit.
improvement.
Well, because you can still. There's still some cases where you might need to use, say, a creator, or it's a bit simpler
Yeah.
to use a creator. I'm in two minds about manager. I like that it's one transformer that does everything, but then it's also one transformer that does everything. If you put an attribute creator in, it's very obvious you are creating an attribute.
Yeah.
You put a renamer in,
Yep.
you're renaming it. But if you put an attribute manager, you have to open it, you have to actually go through and find what's
going
happening.
on in there. Yeah, I agree. Because if all you're wanting to do is keep one attribute, use the keeper.
Yep.
Everybody can do their own style of everything, right?
Yep.
But your point is very valid in that using an attribute manager over and over and over within a workspace, when all you're doing is keeping an attribute,
Yeah.
then someone has to open it to see what they're going to do, and it's
Multiple attribute managers does cause problems if you start doing games out in the past, because if you remove one from one, then the next one says, red flag.
Yes.
This attribute's now missing.
yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and especially when, great example with your attribute keeper, if you've got a dynamic workflow that the schema might change,
Yeah.
then the attribute manager is going to be a poor choice for that, because you won't be able to remove attributes that aren't exposed or attributes that might change. So therefore, the keeper, you specify exactly what you want to keep, and it just blows away everything else.
Right.
So I think attribute manager is a great
It's
intro.
super handy.
It's a good sort of novice transformer.
However, I did find I solved a problem for Todd the other week, which required the attribute manager.
That couldn't be done in another one.
Of them. It was setting a default value for multiple attributes at a time. Because an attribute creator that set the default value is only one attribute.
Yeah.
If you've got lots of existing attributes, you want to set default values for it.
Okay.
If they're missing, then into different values.
Yeah.
Then
And-
attribute manager was the only way to do it.
And a null attribute manager only does or can do many attributes, but they have to be the same value.
And the ultimate map will only set them to the same value.
Yeah.
I could see another case where you're going from one file type to another file type, and you're wanting to change the names of things, maybe add aliases and drop a few.
Yeah.
Then you could just like throw an attribute manager in there, do what you need to do, pass it out. You know what I mean? There's definitely use cases.
CSV to Excel, you chuck your attribute manager in the middle, you can rename things, you can reorder them.
Yep.
You can do all of it in one, and then it's just that one transformer rather than a whole slew of transformers.
Right.
Again, depends on the purpose
Exactly.
of the workbench.
FME Cloud, when they introduced FME Cloud, just getting to spin up your own FME server so easily is pretty amazing. Dynamic engines, scaling
I
up.
like dynamic engines. I think that's a really underutilized part of that FME enterprise environment on Flow, because you can it just allows you to process so much more, and it's only pay for what you use.
And when you combine that, depending on who's using it, when you combine that with FME Cloud, the ease of upgrades, the ease of backups, the ease of spinning things up, and then dynamic engines on top of that.
Yeah.
Just like if your organization, if that's the right fit, it's just completely scalable and everything can happen so quickly.
Oh, definitely. And you start sort of build into that elasticity of I was going to say a lot of other systems, but the elasticity that a lot of other systems don't have. So say if you compare it to a ArcGIS environment, yes, you've got some flexibility around the number of instances that runs a service. You've got resource on the machine, but that can't be changed in real time. That can't be changed on demand as something scales up and down.
Yeah.
Whereas with dynamic engines and the company queue controls, job routing, all of that
the
sort
other
of
tweaks
stuff.
and things you can plug in there.
In the new 2023, which is something that I'm really looking forward to playing with, time-based queues, which is awesome because overnight you might not be having a whole bunch of users manually interacting with the system, and it might be an opportunity to prioritize your scheduled jobs because then you can shift everything around and start doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah. Is there anything else? I've reached the end of my list. I appreciate you guys
well, no, I think
humoring me with the...
I think we could keep going for a long time here, but there could well be a version 2 of this.
I'm sure. If you get Todd in the room.
I mean, how niche do you want to go? Like 2022 or 2021 they added the pipe replacer, which...
Yeah, that's right.
Which is just like... And unless you're working in lines buffering into 3D... it turns a line into
okay.
Yeah, it was like previously using the buffer would take ages, and this thing just does it instantly because it's a new geometry type. Essentially, what they introduced.
So that's an incredibly niche one, but massive improvements, and goes back to what we were saying about the HTML extractor. Simplifies. Probably was really only a buffer, but.
Simplifies it down. The buffer in 3D takes a long time.
Yeah.
This is essentially like extruding it in 2D, extruding it and then replacing it as a cylinder, but also kind of buffers on the corners. It's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Well, lots of improvements.
Yeah. And they're always doing more. That's what's awesome.
There is always more.
Yeah. It's a pretty exciting time.
And definitely.
The other new transformer this year was the Vertex Normal Remover, and I would like to see who asked for it, what does it do? Documentation just says it removes normal vertices, or removes vertices with normals.
I don't know what that means.
We're passing the ball to Safe Software on that one. Thanks for tuning in today, though. This was a lot of fun, being able to go through time and how FME improves over the years and what type of efficiencies that it provides, and the nuanced Vertex normal remover that they've provided us over the years. But anyways, this is Hamish. I'm Gavin. Chris. We're with Abley Digital Engineering, and this was another FME Fireside. Thanks.
Cheers.